Well, good morning. How are you all today? Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. Are you prepared for a collapse? Well, that's what I want to talk about today. I want to ask you if you are, tell you why you should be, and maybe talk a little bit about how to do it. On the cover, many of you have read this. On the cover of my first book, the reversion, it says, "When the world collapsed, some were ready to start over." If it collapsed, are you ready to start over? Some of you are. Most of you are not. It kind of depends on the nature of the collapse. We hear a lot about collapse, economic collapse, collapse of the government, collapse of the currency, collapse of this, collapse of that. It's popular fodder for in the preparedness world, and rightfully so. But these things kind of come and go. They have ebbs and flows, peaks and valleys, because the world changes, and it changes often. And so the catastrophe of today, may give way to the catastrophe of tomorrow. It doesn't mean the catastrophe happened. It means that the amount of attention that was paid it has simply changed because something different happened in the news. But there is a collapse that is pretty much assured us, and if you are prepared for that, you're going to be prepared for anything, and that's the collapse that I always suggest people prepare for. I'm going to grab and read something out of one of the beginnings of my second book and explain this to you. And I'm going to tell you why this changed the way that I approached preparedness. And I've told you that I've lived a preparedness lifestyle for 50 years, going clear back through my law enforcement days, 60 years if you go back to my Boy Scout days, right? So I've always had a prepared mind, and I've always lived a preparedness lifestyle to one extent or another. But there was something that completely changed the way that I started preparing, and I'm going to read a little bit of it to you. This is out of my second book, The Revival, and I'm going to read the preface of it. It says, on September 1st and 2nd, 1859, a solar coronal mass ejection, CME, and you all are familiar with that, struck the Earth's magnetosphere, causing a geomagnetic storm witnessed around the globe. The northern aurora was seen as far south as southern Mexico, and the southern as far north as Australia. Gold miners awakened in the middle of the night to prepare breakfast, thinking it was daytime, and telegraph systems across America and Europe failed, shocking operators and setting papers on fire. Observed and documented by amateur British astronomer Richard Carrington, it was dubbed the Carrington Event. If a Carrington-class CME struck Earth today, it would destroy all electrical grids and electronic components worldwide. We would immediately be back into a world without electricity. Now, some have said, and I've seen other channels say, well, it's going to throw us back to the Stone Age. That's not true at all. That's not at all true. It would simply throw us back, as I said here, into a world without electricity. And what that means is that we will have lost the temporary infrastructure. We would have lost the ability to use that, but we will not have lost the knowledge. Okay, now I will continue here in just a second and maybe pick back up on that. A nuclear-induced electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, and there's a slight difference between a CME and an EMP, and our Hondo Bob has put a lot of great information over on the Patreon channel about these things. So nuclear-induced electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, would have the same effect in its target area. In either case, the EMP Commission estimates that 90% of those in affected areas would be dead within 1 year from starvation, disease, accidents, and the violence that accompanies societal collapse. How probable is this? In their 2012 report, The American Geophysical Union projected a 12% chance, that's 1 in 8, that a Carrington-class CME would strike the Earth within the next decade. So that's back in 2012. So we've made it through the first decade without it happening, okay? But remember, 12% every decade. The chance of a nuclear-induced EMP attack from one of our global enemies, we have no way to know. And that, again, is from my second book, The Revival. And many people have said that the way things are going today, the dangers of increased technology, the dangers of AI, and all these things, it's a double-sided coin, or it's a double-edged sword. Yeah, there's a lot of good that can come out of it, and a lot of bad also, a lot of danger that can come out of it. And a lot of people have said that with the increased dangers of technology, that this kind of thing may be the only thing that can save us long term. And kind of addressing that, I say on the back here, the death of one society can be the birth of another. So my question is, are you prepared for that kind of collapse? And my whole book series is about that. I'll show you them in a minute. For those of you who haven't read them, tell you how to get them, because it's probably the most complete. That's why I wrote it. Let me back up just a moment and explain that when I realized that this was not only a possibility, but a certainty, because science tells us it is a certainty we're going to be hit with a Earth-destroying, or Earth-affecting CME. It's not a matter of if, it's when. It's a matter of when. It is a certainty. These other things, collapse of the monetary system, collapse of the government, whatever. Let me take a sip. Got a tickle in me throat. Those may or may not happen. Usually they're replaced by something else. You have a collapse of a currency, it's replaced by another currency. You have a collapse of a country, it's replaced by another, or a government is replaced by another government. It's kind of like that. But this collapse, this total collapse, taking us from an electronic dependent world to a world without electricity or electronics is, it's start over day, right? It is starting over. And with a 90% die-off as a result of the things that I mentioned there, the world changes completely. When I realized that this was not just a possibility, but a certainty, it changed the way that I prepared completely. And, probably I used to prepare probably the way most of you do. Prepare for a year or so. No, that's not enough. And that's what made me start writing my books. I wrote the first one, The Reversion, as a way to explain to everybody exactly what you should be doing. What would happen, what the world would look like after a collapse, a total collapse, the different challenges, the different dangers, the different things that I suggest you do to prepare for that, to prepare not just to survive, but as I've always said, to continue to live. I think, let me check on here. Yeah, on the back of my first book, again, and I put my philosophy are in these books, as well as all the, in a great story. It's a series of novels, but I put my philosophy of preparedness into these books, as well as all the lessons that are buried within the story. And in the back of this first one, it said Jim Wyatt, who's the main character, the first main character. Jim Wyatt had always said that if everything fell apart, he didn't want to just survive, he didn't want to notice. When the world did crash, his family's home of Stonemont became not only a refuge, but a place where it might be possible to start over again and reclaim the American ideal. Now, let me ask you this. If that kind of collapse happened, if you wake up in the middle of the night, or you're at work, or you're driving down the street, and all of a sudden everything shuts off, and at first you're going to say, oh, by the way, yeah, the eye is healing nicely. I should tell this to new people here. I had eye surgery, and it is, not only is the bruise going away, but it's coming along. I see you better. Uh, and he says it's going to continue to improve over the next several months. But if that happened, would you notice? Well, I would think 99% of people would, right? Now, there are some people who are totally, self-sustaining, who live, off-grid and kind of back, off the main roads and all that, and they may not notice for a week or two, or until they tried to make a call out to somebody and couldn't get through, because pretty much everybody relies on some degree of technology, right? And some of the ones that live off-grid rely on the most technology because they're tied in with their solar panels, but they still have their internet and phone service and all that. But would you notice? To what extent will you notice? Now, if you're one of the more normal, I shouldn't say that. If you are among the majority of people, because that would have made it sound like people who live way out aren't normal. Well, perfectly normal. If you are among the majority who lives in cities and suburbs and small towns and things like that, well, you're gonna notice immediately, and you're gonna notice, first off, a great confusion occurring around you, and then you're going to notice the beginnings of the gradual collapse of society, and how that is dealt with, by you and by the people around you, is going to determine the chances for your long-term first survival, and then the long-term quality of your life, right? So ask yourself this, and I explain here that Jim Wyatt didn't notice. It's the story of a family, a prepared family, who, as a result of their preparedness, was able to continue living a very high-quality life after the collapse of everything, and also be able to help other people. And then later in the series of books, we see a reintroduction of community and society, and even some technology. But to what extent would you notice? What effect would it have on you? Okay, all of a sudden, there's no lights. There's no lights in your house. There's no lights on the street. There's no police protection. There's no fire protection. There's no emergency services. Somebody has an accident at your house that would require an ambulance, they're not coming. And not only are they not coming, but if you can get them to a hospital, the hospital is not the hospital that was before the collapse, before lights out. I worked at a hospital when I wrote my first book. When I became interested in, and I realized that this kind of collapse was probably a certainty. And when I read the EMP Commission's report, and I thought about it, and I thought, I pictured myself. I pictured in my mind the faces of my children starving and looking at me and saying, "Dad, I'm hungry. Don't we have something to eat?" And Dad saying, "No, not really." Now, at that point, we would have done fine for quite a while. But then you would come to the end of that, and after however long it took for you to get through your supplies, now you are faced with that starvation. And that was when I completely, with that thought, and I suggest you do the same thing. Dad, I'm hungry, and they haven't had anything to eat for 3 or 4 days. I need something to eat, and you don't have anything. Here's where prepping. Who's calling me? I don't know. This is where prepping takes a step into the PMP area, the preparedness-minded person, the person who takes it from kind of the short term of stocking up and keeping a bunch of stuff stored up, to the person who has established a preparedness lifestyle, so that not only are they stocked up, but they have daily under their control for self-sustainment, or have arrangements to make that, okay? So when all those go out, you're in your countdown. So you go home, think about this. You go home, lights are out. Like I say, there's no medical, no fire, no police, anything. I should have started on this too. You probably couldn't believe the bedlam that would occur in a hospital. I used to work in a hospital. Like I said, I was in security, and I talked to to the guy. A lot of the administration, after I wrote my first book, a lot of the administration read my book, and maybe I'll tell you a story about that later on. But I talked with the director of emergency preparedness for the hospital system, and I said, "What plans do y'all have for something like this?" He said, "Nothing, nothing. I guess everybody go home." Right? And that's what would happen, and a lot of people would go home because they have families to get to. Now you have a lot of people leaving a hospital, and a whole lot of patients there needing help, needing care, and not only do they not have the staff anymore to care for them, they don't have a way to get away from the hospital. How about that? And you can say, well, those people would be, they need to stay there and care for people. Yeah, I get that. And the police need to stay out and help, and the fire need to stay out and get and help. And some are going to, and some aren't, because some are going to say, I have a family. I need to. That's my primary responsibility, is to get home. As a matter of fact, in the very first scene in the reversion, I addressed that when Jim stops by he gets himself a bicycle. He's riding home. He stops by a police station, and they're trying to figure out what to do, and they have different opinions on it. I was just talking to a guy that I know not long ago, who is the head of emergency preparedness for a major county around here. And we were talking about this, and I said, "What plans do you all have for this?" He said, "Nothing." So see, that's what the situation would be, and in the scenario of the one collapse that is certain to happen. So that shows you, that changes how you look at preparedness. Basic preparedness, and there's a lot of people who have come on and said in the comments, yeah, we were prepared, we lost our jobs, that helped us through. Whatever, it helped us through an illness, it helped us through all this. But when the whole thing collapses, when the whole system collapses, there is no end in sight. It's not a matter of, well, our canned goods are gonna allow us to keep eating for a few months. No, everything's gone. That's it. Now it's up to you to establish or reestablish a lifestyle that is going to be able to sustain you. And all of the people who depend on you, and most of you, if you're watching this, most of you are PMPs, preparedness-minded people, or preppers, and you're the ones that have been preparing for this. Think about all those people that you are responsible for that have not. Don't see the importance of it. You're responsible for all of them. This is the one thing that ought to scare you to death. There will be wars and rumors of wars. There are those who will tell you that these are the end times, and these are the and they misuse a lot of things to try to scare people into that. And no, I'm not diminishing the end times. We are in the end times, but I don't know, and neither do they, and neither do you, whether the end times are going to end before I end this video or 10,000 years from now. Although there's a lot of people making a lot of money off of scaring people about the end times. Always have been. There've always been those people for thousands of years. Especially among the religious community. I'm religious. I run my home church, so I don't want anybody to misunderstand that. But there's always been those kind of religious zealots that just assure everyone the end is nigh, the end is nigh, and they scare the dickens out of people. They're actually cults. They're death cults. You should always be ready. I'll throw this in. You want a little theology? You should always be ready for the return of Christ. Always, whenever that is. Okay. But no, you shouldn't get all wrapped up in this is the end of the world, and these are the end times, and that's really a death cult. I'll probably make a second one on that one of these days, because there's a lot of people out there just being improperly frightened over these things. But the one thing that is certain, the one collapse that is certain, are you ready for? So how do you get ready for that? Well, I wrote a whole series of books detailing exactly how to get ready for it. I'll show them to you in a minute and tell you how to get them if you'd like. And I would encourage you to. If you haven't read the Stonemont series, I would encourage that be the very next thing you do. Not only will you love the story, you'll love the books, but you will get so much information out of them. You can't believe it. The basics are this. You have to be responsible for every life-sustaining activity necessary. Okay, you have to be responsible for your own food. That means food production as well as the stored food that you have. You have to be responsible for water purification, not just the water that you have stored, but the ability to purify water. Okay, and for people to say, well, you didn't tell us how to do it. Okay, we'll start growing food for the first. Start growing food. Secondly, be able to purify water either through there's a lot of companies out there that have water purifiers and such. I use Berkey. That's mine. I think it's the best. Other people like others. You do your own research. Okay. Sawyer. We have a Sawyer Mini filter in all of our bags. So be able to filter and purify water. Okay. The next is shelter. You probably have shelter now. You probably live in a house. Some of you live in apartments. I saw something, and I'm not necessarily going to rag on this person because I haven't watched the video, but I'm going to go back. I'm going to find it because I'll be interested to see what they say. And the title was something like, the end is coming. You better buy a tent. You'd better be able to live in a tent. Well, okay, if it gets that bad, yeah, you should be able to live in a tent, but, really try to do better, right? Try to do better than living in a tent. So most of you live in a house right now. Are you able to sustain, put heat and light in that house? Do you have the ability to heat a house? Now, I live in the suburbs, okay? But my fireplace is rated for wood burning, okay? We use gas because while the gas is running, it's nice just to turn it on, right? Light her up and turn her on. And it heats the house pretty nicely. But when the gas is gone, my fireplace is also rated for wood burning. Not all fireplaces are. And so you need to know that. And then I also have about 2 years of wood in my backyard. Actually, I'm going to start burning that off because I want to replace it with newer wood. There's reasons for that. Defense. Are you able to defend yourself? And I don't mean do you have a little gun that you carry or have by your bedside? No. You need, in the absence of police protection, bad people stop being afraid of being caught. Are you able to defend wherever it is you are, whether you're walking, whether you're in your house, whether you're in your apartment? Do you understand the violence, the real extent of violence? And most people don't. Most people don't have any idea of how sick real violence is. I suggest that you study home invasions. And I've talked about this before. Read the one about Christian Newsom in Knoxville. Read the one about the doctor who, I forget his name, this is back east someplace, who a couple of guys went into their house, tied up his daughter's wife, raped his wife, tied him up, lit the house on fire. I think a couple of girls burned to death. I forget. Read about that stuff. Read about how sick and brutal real violence is. It's not like so many of these guys who like to talk about their guns and I put them where I want them and that kind of bull. No, violence, real violence, is sickening to a normal person. Some of us at one point in our life became, I won't say immune, but well, kind of. We became used to it. That is not a normal lifestyle. Really not. And so to the normal person, real violence is more shocking than you can imagine, but you have to be ready for it. You have to be able to protect yourself against it. And then how about your circle of people? I call mine the circle of friends. Other people call it their mag. I don't suggest mags. I think there's too many problems that come into forming a group for the specific purpose of preparedness before something happens, unless it is religious centered. because if it's a religious center, you have an idea of the core values of the people in the group. Without religious center, whether it's a bowling team, Boy Scout troop, or whatever, you have people who have come together for a specific purpose, but you don't really know, a lot about them. You don't know what their core. You know what they present to you within that very limited, situation. But make sure that your circle of friends, that's what I call it, your friends, your family, are tightened up. You are going to be responsible for everything. Everything. And that is the one collapse you need to prepare for. Because if you're prepared for that, you're pretty much prepared for anything else short of an asteroid strike. And that's really true. I'll throw in a bunch. There's a lot of other things that I could throw in. It'd take an hour to even touch on all of them. You should have a place to go. You should have. Some people talk about bug out locations. I call them alternative locations. We have secondary locations in a number of places. If we ever needed to leave here, that's where we're going. We have conveyance. We have vehicles, and the right kind of vehicles. I suggest SUVs. We have a number of SUVs. And the ability to get from one place to another. Now, when I wrote my books, there was the thought that vehicles wouldn't run in the case of a CME. That people have kind of changed their mind on that. So I'm assuming that for the most part, vehicles will be running. But I talk about in the reversion, the first book, what Jim did to make sure that his vehicles did run. And there's ways to do that, and it's not that EMP shield. I have no idea whether those work. I've never cared to use one. But do you have your supplies ready to go and stage so that you can take them to another location? Though a lot of things go into these things, but the important thing is to realize and to accept and then prepare for the one collapse that we are assured, and that is the big one. The big one. All these others may or may not happen, but the big one, science tells us, is pretty much assured. So, Steve, what are these books you've been telling us about? How do I learn everything? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I will show you. I wrote the first one, the reversion, back in, it came out in 2017. So I guess I started writing it about 10 years ago. And then the second one came, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth, and the seventh, working on the eighth one now. But they are the reversion, the revival, the renewal, and appeal to heaven, the blessings of freedom, hostages to fortune, and the most recent one, I won't say the very latest, been out for a while, the On Wings Like Eagles. And in there, I doubt there's any question you could ask that I haven't already answered in detail in these books. From immediate preparedness to community to defense to dealing with the really bad stuff, uber violence, slavery, cannibalism, everything. But it's a very positive story. As a matter of fact, the guy that wrote the foreword in the first couple said it's an unbelievably positive story about an unbelievably negative experience. And like I say, I don't think there's a question you'd be able to ask me that I haven't already answered in detail in here. It's packed with the lessons of preparedness and survival, but it's in a great story that will make you not even realize how much you're learning. And you can get them through Amazon. They've always been available through Amazon. You can get them there either in paperback or Kindle or Audible. Or you can get them directly from me. And I love it when you do that. That's the best way to do it, because now we just ran out, but I'm expecting another order in soon. So those of you who order from here on forward, the wait's not going to be too long. I'm getting better on keeping up. Sometimes in the past I've run out and then people had to wait, and then I get, but I got another order coming. And so if you order them from me, you can get the whole set at a nice, you can't get the set through Amazon, but you can get a whole set through me at a nice discount, because when we send them as a set, we save on postage and handling and all that kind of stuff. And then I get to sign them for you. You can't get it signed on Amazon, but I get to sign it for you, write a little note in there to you. And I love that because I love kind of knowing, have a relationship with my readers. And that's cool. So you get a nice discount. You get it through our website, stonemont.us. That link is also down below. And when you do that through our website, then I also throw in the Stonemont notebook. And I use mine all the time. It's just an empty notebook with a bunch of lines. You can put your preparedness list, your plans, your questions, everything like that. I have filled up numerous ones of these, and it's so cool just to be able to look, rather than looking at scratch paper or whatever, or a binder or loose leaf or, a bar napkin. It's a nice place to keep all of your lists and thoughts and things like that. So that is it. You want answers to all of your questions on how to really build a prepared lifestyle. That's it, the Stonemont series, and you'll love them. Thousands of people love them all over the world for years and years and years. I have no doubt you will too. But the important thing is that you learn, and that you get ready, and you understand, and you accept. You realize that this is the big one that you need to plan for. I hate little cliches like it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, but that's true in this case. It is going to happen. And if you don't accept that, you won't be preparing the way you should. And if you do accept that, then you'll prepare the way you should for that, but you'll also be prepared for everything else. Okay? All right, I'm going to leave you with that. Now get out and do something today. Maybe order those books. That'd probably be the best thing you could do today. But I always say, do something every day. Make preparedness a pattern in your life. And then it'll be a part of your life, not just something that you do here and there and here and again, right? And that's the true path to preparedness. So, as we always say, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Prepare well today, because I want you to live well tomorrow, just like I want to live well tomorrow, right? Okay. Y'all have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.